When I was 11, there was a house across from my school that haunted me. It sat crooked behind a rusted gate, the paint flaking off its walls like old skin. The windows were cloudy, and the porch sagged as if the house was tired of standing. Every time I looked at it, a chill crawled down my spine. My friends used to laugh whenever we passed it after school. They'd joke about ghosts living there or dare each other to run up and knock on the door. I never joined in. Something about that house felt wrong, too still, too aware. I'd tell them to stop, that whoever lived there wouldn't appreciate being mocked. They'd laugh at me, calling me a scaredy cat. And maybe I was. I just didn't like the idea of waking something up that shouldn't be disturbed. For a while, walking by that house was just part of the routine. But once October came around, everything changed. The afternoons got shorter, and my friends stayed late for their after-school programs. That meant I had to walk home alone, right past that house. It started on a Wednesday. I was halfway down the sidewalk when I noticed movement in one of the upstairs windows. Someone was standing there, perfectly still, watching me. I froze mid-step, my backpack heavy against my shoulders. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. The shape was too tall, too shadowed. I hurried away, pretending I hadn't seen anything. The next day, it happened again, and again after that. Each afternoon, that same figure stood there at the window, motionless, watching me cross the street. I told myself it was just my imagination, or maybe someone getting ready for Halloween early. When I told my friends, they shrugged it off and told me to stop being dramatic. But then came the week before Halloween. The air was cold enough to sting. I remember the crunch of leaves under my shoes and how the clouds had swallowed the sun early. As I neared the house, I saw something that made my heart skip. The figure wasn't in the window this time. It was standing on the porch, tall, still, facing the street. I told myself not to look, not to react. I gripped the straps of my backpack and walked faster. My pulse was pounding in my ears. And then, without warning, the figure moved. It ran down the steps. At first, I couldn't believe it was happening. The man, because now I could tell it was a man, was charging straight toward me, his shoes slamming against the cracked concrete. I screamed and bolted, my legs burning as I sprinted down the street. His footsteps thundered behind me. I could hear him shouting, but the words didn't make any sense. Just angry noises like someone speaking through madness. I turned the corner and darted into the nearest alley. Trash bags, dumpsters, the smell of rot. I dropped behind a dumpster, trying to quiet my breathing. My heart was hammering so hard I thought he'd hear it. Then the footsteps stopped. He was right there, just outside the alley. I could hear him mumbling, low, incoherent words, each one closer than the last. His shoes scraped the pavement as he stepped forward. I clamped my hands over my mouth, afraid even my breathing would give me away. I could hear him breathing too, slow, heavy, right beside the dumpster. And then, silence. A second later, the sound of retreating footsteps echoed down the alley. He was gone. I waited another full minute before I dared to move. When I finally stepped out, my knees were shaking so hard I could barely stand. I ran all the way home, slamming the door behind me. My parents were shocked when I told them everything. My dad called the police right away. The officers arrived within 20 minutes, took my statement, and drove to check out the house. They said they'd update us in the morning. That night, I barely slept. Every sound from outside felt like footsteps, every shadow like someone standing at the window. The next day, the police came back. What they told us didn't make sense. According to them, nobody had lived in that house for years. It was abandoned, vacant, since before I even started going to that school. They said maybe a homeless person had broken in, using the place for shelter. Maybe that's who I saw. But even as a kid, something about that explanation didn't sit right. Whoever that man was, he wasn't just hiding there. He was waiting. After that, the city eventually boarded up the house. Windows sealed, door chained shut. Still, for weeks afterward, I'd cross the street early just to avoid walking too close. It's been over a decade now. I'm 22, but even today, whenever I pass a house that looks abandoned, peeling paint, empty windows, porch sagging under the weight of time, I feel that same cold fear rise in my chest. Because sometimes, I still see it, a shadow in the window, watching, waiting.